Because in Chapter 4, Dr. Harley Sawyer directly refers to the player as a human being.
You know, I never thought I'd see another like you. A human.
So the player is definitely human, but that creates an even bigger mystery. How are we still alive? And not just from the injuries. Think about everything the player has been doing inside the factory, running through dangerous areas, solving complex puzzles, surviving chase after chase, fighting monster after monster, all without proper rest, without food, and without water. And we've been doing this for days. Now, realistically, a human being can survive without food and water for a short period of time. And if we look closely at the timeline of the story, the early chapters actually make sense. Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 most likely happen within just a few hours. During those chapters, we don't take too much damage. Even the train crash at the end of Chapter 2, while dangerous, is something a human could technically survive. So at that point in the story, the player being alive still makes sense. Then Chapter 3 happens. This is probably around the second day inside the factory. We do get knocked down a few times by characters like Kissy Missy and Catnap, but those attacks are not necessarily fatal. The player might be injured or exhausted, but it's still survivable. However, things become much more confusing in Chapter 4, because this is where the player takes one of the most dangerous falls in the entire series. After the chase with Doughy, the player reaches the shelf ventilation block B6 area. Then the prototype triggers a massive explosion. During the chaos, Kissy Missy tries to grab the player to save them, but her arm gets torn off, and the player falls nearly 60 feet. For many fans, this moment is extremely confusing. How could a human survive a fall like that? But there is actually a possible explanation. When the player falls, we land on our back. And remember, the player is wearing the grab pack. That device is large, thick, and attached directly to our back. So it's very possible that the grab pack absorbs a large portion of the impact, which would significantly reduce the damage from the fall. Right now, that is the most logical explanation we have. Then Chapter 5 begins. At this point in the story, it is probably the second or third day inside the factory. The player should be extremely tired. We should need food, water, and rest. But the player is still running. In fact, some fans even notice that the player runs faster at the beginning of Chapter 5. And there is a possible explanation for that